Hello, everyone. Welcome to NAIFA Live. I'm your host, Zach Hewells. We have a great speaker lined up for you today, but first we're going to kick things over to NAIFA Tennessee's John D. Richardson with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, John. And now I'm going to turn things over to NAIFA CEO Kevin Mayu for some NAIFA announcements.
Hello, NAIFA Nation. Welcome to our June 2024 NAIFA Live. This week, we celebrate NAIFA's 134th birthday and honor all those that have been leaders and have participated in our association since our founding as NALU, the National Association of Life Underwriters, back in Boston in 1890. Our history is rich and it's varied, but throughout the decades, one thing has been consistent. We have always been vigilant in protecting you, serving this profession, and making sure you and every other advisor is in a position where they can best serve their clients. This work continues today on many fronts at the state and federal levels, but also as us working as part of a coalition to oppose the DOL's fiduciary-only rule. I want to thank our friends and colleagues in NAIFA Texas, our local chapters in Texas, our coalition partners at ACLI, FinSECA, IRI, and NAFA for the work working with NAIFA to see this erroneous public policy have it stricken from the books. Advocacy and engagement are really important, and our work continues on this on multiple fronts every single day. Many of you all may remember the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was put in place a few years ago. Many of the provisions of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expired next year, and so we're already beginning our work with Congress to see many of those key provisions renewed moving forward, again, so that Americans have the strength to be able to save, have the ability to plan for their financial future, and you as advisors can help them along the way. In case you missed it, we did a webinar on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act just last week. And if you missed it, you can access it at any time at advocacy.naifa.org/archives. And even though we're here in the summer, please know that NAIFA really never takes a vacation for representing you and working on your behalf so that you can be a better professional. We have many activities planned throughout the summer, including in-district meetings, our new book club that we have formed, and even a fitness challenge. And then, of course, there's lots of programming like NAIFA Live that takes place throughout the summer. Also, if you've not yet obtained your LUTCF designation, it's a great time to do that. This is a self-paced study course where you can earn that designation, which will help you be successful in this profession. You might also consider getting the RSSA certification, which is a deep dive into Social Security, and it's a new benefit that we offer all of our members. Summer is also a great time to catch up on your reading, such as the digital edition of the Society of Financial Service Professionals Journal. As a member of NAIFA, you have free access to this digital version, so I'd encourage you to take advantage of it and read some of the great thought leadership that's included in there. In addition, Life Happens has a lot of materials that are available for you as NAIFA members. All that's available in the NAIFA member portal, so check it out. And speaking of Life Happens, we're always looking for real life stories to tell so that we can talk about, again, how the work that you do as an advisor positively impacts so many people. If you'd like to get a spotlight on you and a client in a situation where you've helped them out, please consider bringing that up because we'd love to get that word out and to help you tell that story. And lastly, we're looking for more fun ways to engage our members throughout the summer. But one of the key ways we can do this, all of us can play a role, and that is by referring other financial advisors to join NAIFA. Reach out to your friends and colleagues. Ask for them to be part of this association. Invite them to be part of our NAIFA family because it'll make a difference in their career and it'll help make us stronger as an association so we can better serve you, them, and the entire profession. So again, encourage your friends to join NAIFA, NAIFA.org. Just go check it out on our website and click the join button. It's now my pleasure to introduce our June 2024 NAIFA Live speaker, Roger Seip, and he is going to show us how to train your brain for success. Roger, the floor is yours. Have a great summer, everybody.
Terrific. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here with you for NAIFA Live. I am Roger Seip. Those of you that don't know me, I am the founder and CEO of a coaching company that's called Freedom Personal Development. I'm also the author of this book called Train Your Brain for Success. which I got to tell you, I really like. This book has done really, really well over the last 11 years that it's been out. And so here's what we're all about today. I've got 55 minutes to spend with you. And I know we've got people dialed in from all over the country right now. I'm coming at you from Madison, Wisconsin. And what we're going to be talking about today is my favorite thing to talk about with NAIFA members and members of the insurance and financial advisory industry. And that is, we're going to be talking about how you, as a professional, can literally train your brain to help you be as effective and as successful as possible in both your business and in your life in general. Yeah, we're going to be talking about how you can specifically manage space between your ears in the ways that's going to help you get the best results possible in all the important areas of your life. When I say best results possible, but I guess I want to put this out right away. I am not an academic. I'm not a professor. I'm not a guru. So we won't be doing any hypnotism or meditating today, although those are wonderful things to do. I'm a business guy like you. I understand that as a NAIFA member, especially a NAIFA member who, opted to spend an hour on a NAIFA live event like this one, where the topic, I understand as a fellow business person that results are important. So I will tell you that what we're going to work on over the next 50-ish minutes, most of my clients will actually use this information to grow their business and specifically make more money. I know that's important to many of us on this call. Regardless of job description, though, I will tell you that all of my clients will use what we work on here today to experience higher levels of energy and focus in everything that they do, and lower levels of unwanted stress. So I can't really get any interaction verbally because we're on a webinar setting here, but I'm hoping that's of interest to you, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about how my clients have specifically trained their brains to help them be as effective and successful as possible. So the way that we're going to go about that is there's kind of three main pieces of the puzzle that we're going to work on. I would encourage you, if you don't have something to take a few notes with, I would encourage you to get some pen and paper handy, because you're probably going to want to write some of these things down. I know that this class is being recorded for future posterity and for those that couldn't be on the call live with us, but I would really recommend that you'll do your best learning if you have something to write with. So we're going to talk, number one, about specifically how your mind creates your life and gets you results in the first place. Number two, we're going to talk about what I call your brain's unhelpful default settings. I want to help you identify some of the specific wiring issues that we all possess, where if you're not dealing with them proactively, they will physically prevent you from getting where you want to go. And then we're going to wrap up by talking about, okay, so what do you do about this? Like, I'll share with you 4 specific strategies and tactics that you'll be able to start applying immediately that will help make your brain pull you forward instead of pushing you backwards, right? Work for you instead of against you. So as far as interaction goes, I'll just point this out. We do not have the ability to do physical or verbal interaction. Like, you can't talk to me on this call, but if you do have a question, we're going to kind of do Q&A a little bit different. You've got the Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen. I am monitoring that. So if a question pops up that you'd like me to address or go deeper on, just go ahead and put your question in the Q&A box. That will pop up a notification for me, and I will make sure that we address this in whatever way that you want to. So yeah, let's dive on in. Hopefully you've got your note-taking material set up, and let's begin this discussion of train your brain for success with a little bit deeper understanding of specifically how your mind creates your life and your results in the first place. So I almost feel a little like embarrassed when I start talking about how your mind creates your life with a group of NAIFA members, especially a group like you, who are going to show up to a Train Your Brain for Success webinar. And the only reason that I say I'm embarrassed is because I am confident that when I bring up the idea that your mind creates your life, I'm sure that that's not a brand new concept for you, right? This is actually, I'm going to say this is not just an old idea. This is an ancient idea. Like, you find references to the idea that your mind creates your life, or that your thinking is important and shapes your world. I mean, you find references to that idea in places like the Bible and every other ancient spiritual text that was written thousands of years ago. So this is a concept that's been discussed and written about and philosophized over for literally as long as there's been human beings. That's not a new idea. What is new, and what we're going to be talking about here over the next few minutes, is it really has just been in the last few decades that we've started to understand specifically the mechanics of how your mind actually creates your life and makes things happen for you. So there's three main mechanisms that we're going to discuss here today. Like I said, you'll probably want to write these down, because I think that you'll find that an understanding of these three ways that your brain creates your business and your life I think you'll find that they're not just interesting on like an academic level. I think you're going to find that they're really, really practical in getting you results. So let's dive on in. Number one, first kind of mechanism by which your mind creates your life. If you're taking notes, you can write down that your focus determines your reality. If we were live, I'd have like a little fill in the blank mini workbook for you here, but you can just write that down. Your focus determines your reality. What that means in plain English is that literally whatever you focus your attention on, whatever you direct your thoughts towards in any given moment, is literally the main determinant of the reality that you experience, both internally and then externally in the results. And I'll show you, I'm going to have you experience something with me. I'll show you, help kind of show you what I mean, because there's a million different ways that we could talk about this. Sure, some people like to approach this from like a spiritual, like hippy dippy woo woo law of attraction perspective. Great, I believe in that, and I find that it's really helpful. I mean, listen, quantum physics and neuroscience now teach us that it's literally physically true that your thoughts, what you're paying attention to, physically impacts the world around you. Rather than a detailed lecture on quantum physics and neuroscience, I did want to do just a short exercise. This is something that you can do right where you're sitting right now. It involves no, I'm not going to try and hypnotize anybody, and we're not going to start chanting. But here's what I would like you to do. I'd like you to kind of just direct your focus in two specific ways. I'm just going to ask you two questions, and I want you to just kind of answer the question for yourself honestly. And as you hear these two questions, I would love for you to just pay attention and notice how these questions make you feel. And I mean physically, like where does this show up in your body? So first question, I would ask for a show of hands if we were together in a room, but I can't see your hands anyway, so I'm not going to make you raise your hands. First question I would ask is, can you identify that you have at least one problem somewhere in your life? Of course you can, right? And just so you'll understand, I'm not going down the traditional motivational speaker path of like, hey, I want you to understand that those aren't really problems. They're just situations, challenges, and opportunities. Again, true value in that perspective, but I get it. All of us, if you're being honest, all of us have at least one or two things in our worlds that we wish were better. Here's what I'd like you to do with that. Whatever it is that just popped into your mind as a problem that you're experiencing or a stress point that you've got going on, whether it's big or small, doesn't matter. Just focus on it for a second, kind of see it in your mind if you can. And then just pause, if you don't mind, and just notice how it feels. Right? Just notice notice how it feels in your body when you focus on something that's stressful or problematic. How does it feel in your head or your neck or your hands or your shoulders or your stomach, wherever it shows up for you? And now I'm going to ask you one more question. I want to shift this up a little bit. I would ask you, can you identify that you've got at least one thing in your life that you are genuinely thankful for? Like, big or small, is there anything in your business or in your life that you are genuinely grateful for? I'm sure, again, that the answer is yes. So whatever that is that popped into your mind is anything that you're legitimately like, yeah, I'm really glad that that's there. Just focus on that for a moment and notice how it feels in your head, your neck, your shoulders, your hands, your arms, your stomach, wherever it shows up for you. Like I said, we don't have the exercise is now officially over, by the way. Congratulations. I told you, pretty simple. If we were together in a room, we'd be able to have some really good discussion about this, but I can pretty well predict what y'all would say. I asked you to pay attention and notice how it felt, to focus on those two different, potentially silly seeming things. And most of you, if you were paying attention, I would bet money that you noticed that those two questions and your answers to them, they felt different. What people always say, they always notice that the answer to that second question, it just feels better. I get people all the time, they say, I felt lighter, I felt happier, I felt more positive, I felt more peaceful, just in the blink of an eye. And here's why that is. It's because of what you wrote down. If you're taking notes, it's because your focus literally determines your reality. Watch this. I didn't get all up in your face and say, hey, what is your problem? I just asked if you could identify that you have a problem. That was the first question that I asked. What happens in a person's brain is that literally your brain hears the question, starts thinking about it, and before your brain can even identify what is the problem that I'm thinking of, like literally in the blink of an eye, just the fact that you started focusing your thoughts in that direction instantaneously creates a whole cascade of mental and physical processes that will cause you to physically experience things like stress, anxiety, worry, resentment, possibly even anger, and a lot of tension, right? And then as soon as I asked you that second question and redirected your focus about anything that you're thankful for, just the fact that you shifted your focus, again, before your brain could even identify what it is that you're thankful for, the fact that you started thinking in that direction reversed all of that stuff and caused you in the blink of an eye to start physically experiencing things like excitement and enthusiasm and gratitude and much greater peace of mind. And if you were paying attention, it's very likely that a lot of that tension that came with focusing on your stressors just went away. So if you're looking for a takeaway on this, I would tell you that I actually just gave you a phenomenal technique for training your brain. What you just did with those two little questions is the simplest version of what's known as practicing gratitude. And at the risk of sounding a little hippy-dippy woo-woo, I know, when your speaker gets up and starts talking about, oh, your focus determines your reality, so let's all just practice gratitude. It can sound a little bit touchy-feely. And it's also one of the most certain and fastest acting performance improvement methods that we know of. If you're ever in the place where you need to just feel better fast, you're on your way into a big presentation or a big meeting, or you've got to make a great first impression on somebody, the fastest way to improve your mood, your spirit, your energy is definitely through just a moment of practicing gratitude. Taking a moment to focus on anything that you're thankful for will get you that lift every single time. And again, here's why this is practical. I want to come back to this. I understand y'all are business people. Y'all are sales professionals. You're business building wizards in some cases. And this is important. I actually think that this thing that we're talking about, how your focus determines your reality, is one of the most important business building sort of techniques that a person can use. And I'll put it this way. I understand that as a NAIFA member, as a business person, wherever you are in the country, your ability to work with people and influence people is probably the most critical skill that you've got. It's probably the most critical thing that you have that allows you to grow a profitable business and really help your clients and your prospects. So watch this. You think about any interaction that you're going to have with a client, whether it's in person or over the phone or over Zoom. If you show up to that interaction with another human being and your focus is on your problems, stress, frustration, anxiety, worry, those are the things that you're feeling, versus you show up to that same interaction after having recently just done a little bit of gratitude and gotten that little boost, and therefore you're experiencing things like excitement and enthusiasm and gratitude and peace of mind. Do you think that the clients and prospects, the people on the other end of those interactions, do you think that they can feel the difference? I promise the answer is yes. And it's not much of a leap to then go, yeah, okay, that difference that they get in feeling that comes from what you're focusing on has a lot to do with the outcomes of those interactions, right? I hope I'm making sense here. That vibe that people get has a lot to do with whether they say yes or no, whether they work with you or against you, whether they give you referrals or not. This principle that we're talking about is super practical. It really shows. I know it can sound a little touchy-feely, but it really shows up. It really shows up in the bottom line of a business like yours. So, number one, your focus determines your reality. It's your number one mechanism by which your mind creates your life. Let me check. Oh, we're doing great on time. Number two, second mechanism by which your mind creates your life. If you're taking notes, I'd encourage you to write down that what you see is what you get. What you see is what you get. And I don't care if you spell get, G-E-T, or G-I-T. It don't matter to me. Here's what it means in plain English. What you see is what you get. This is actually a pretty well-known principle, so I'm not going to spend that much time on it, but it is incredibly powerful in getting results quickly with your brain. It's actually one of the major keys to working smarter, not harder, is understanding that what you see is what you get. What it means in plain English is that the pictures that you see in your mind will become the results that you get in your business and in your money and in your life. What you see is what you get. The pictures that you see in your mind will become the results that you get in your business and in your life. I said this is a pretty well-known principle. Athletes apply this principle extensively. In fact, I'm imagining that a number of you may even have experience with this as an athlete or as a coach. So hang with me for a second. If you observe elite athletes in the moments right before they perform, right now I love watching the Olympics. So I'm watching the Olympic trials right now. I watch a lot of the swimmers. But if you, name your sport, right? If you observe like a professional golfer about to hit a shot, or an Olympic swimmer or gymnast or figure skater or runner or if you watch a basketball player about to hit a free throw, if you observe elite, truly great athletes in the moments right before they do their routine or take their shot or run their race, do you know what those athletes are doing in their mind in those moments? That's exactly right. I can hear you all around the country. You know what I'm talking about. They're visualizing. People understand that an athlete, it's a little counterintuitive actually. Before an athlete is about to exert maximum effort and put all their energy out at once, they will literally stop for a moment and do nothing other than focus their mind on a very specific picture. They see it happening in their mind. They focus their mind on a picture of a positive outcome for what they're about to do. They picture the ball going in the hole, or they picture the gold medal being received. They picture running the fastest time that they've ever run. They see it, they visualize it, right? And you probably understand why athletes do this visualization thing. It's because all my teachers' pet students are out there. You're going, it's because what you see is what you get. Yeah, that's right. The better answer for why do athletes do this what you see is what you get visualization thing is because it really, really works. There's hundreds, thousands of studies have been done on this now. I actually have a friend of mine here in Madison, Wisconsin, who wrote his master's thesis on visualization in sports. It's actually pretty fascinating. Athletes understand that if they can see the result they're about to get before they perform the activity that's necessary to get that result, they know that they're much more likely to perform in a way that gets them that result. They understand that the pictures that they're seeing in their mind become the results that they get in their athletic performance. Question I wanted to ask you, and again, it's probably going to sound rhetorical. Do you think that principle applies outside of sports? Do you think that the principle applies in your business? I promise you it does. I can tell you that my coaching clients have used this principle of what they see is what they get, of learning how to properly visualize the right performance. I've seen it accomplish everything from people closing the largest case of their career to having their best year ever in the profitability and the income from their business, to buying a building, to hiring the exact right staff member or team member. This principle shows up all over. Anytime that your brain needs, anytime that the performance of you is what dictates a specific result, this principle comes into play. If you're wondering how to harness it, I gave you a little tip from your Uncle Roger here. The takeaway that I would take away from this part of our conversation is to upgrade your clarity. If you're looking to how to harness the creative visualization parts of your brain, upgrade your clarity. Get clearer on, get a clearer picture in your mind of what you want and why you want that. I'd encourage you, don't worry so much about how you're going to get there, but just start with a picture, a clearer picture of what you want, what results are you looking for, and why do you want those results. It's amazing how when you get that kind of clarity, how your brain kind of takes over the how for you, and you start to get those results in unexpected and really fun ways. Again, I'm happy to talk more about this with you offline if you want to. Which, by the way, I should probably throw this out there. In about 15 minutes, we are going to put up the poll on kind of how we're doing here. What do you think about all this that we're doing? And then some of you may want to get in touch with me after we're done here. I'm just going to put out my personal email address right now for anybody that wants to talk with me in more depth after this NAIFA live session is over. Please feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll talk to you till we're both blue in the face. My email is Roger, R-O-G-E-R, at deliverfreedom.com, all one word. Roger, R-O-G-E-R, at deliverfreedom.com. Okay, so that's number 2 mechanism by which your mind creates your life. What you see is what you get. Pictures in your mind are going to become the results that you get. Third mechanism, then, if you're taking notes, this might be your third bullet point. Third mechanism by which your mind creates your life. This one's not quite so well known, so we'll spend a little bit of time on this one. You can put down in your notes that what you see is what you look for. What you see is what you look for. From your brain's perspective, what this means is that the pictures and things that you're going to end up focusing on, the pictures that are going to live in your mind most consistently, are going to be the pictures that you have conditioned your mind, literally that you have trained your brain to focus on. Shameless plug for the book. The pictures that your brain's going to end up settling on and focusing on are going to be determined largely by, they're going to be the pictures that you have conditioned your brain, that you've trained yourself to focus on. And this conditioning that I'm talking about, this training that we're discussing here, I want to help you understand this, because this conditioning is happening all the time. Whether you realize it or not, your brain is constantly being conditioned and programmed to direct your focus in certain places. And the most powerful place, the most powerful source of conditioning that we get on a day-to-day basis is the choices that you make. You're looking to take a note, this is a pretty good one to go home with. The choices that you make condition your brain to focus in one direction or another. And here's what I mean by this. This is not just my opinion. This one is, honest to goodness, brain science. I might have mentioned this before. I'm not an academic. I'm not actually a scientist. I'm a business guy. So I try not to get too nerded out on science in presentations like this. But there's one pretty kind of nerdy brain thing that you really do need to know about, because it's a huge driver of our behavior. It's a part of your brain that's called the reticular activating system. Don't worry about the spelling of it. It's the reticular activating system. You can just abbreviate it as the RAS. Google it if you want to. I'll give you the brief lesson on what it's all about, because it really is important to understand. The reticular activating system is part of your brain that functions as a filter. Okay, you know this, maybe. You have a filter on your brain, specifically the reticular activating system. It's the filter on what you notice in your environment versus what you don't notice. This is important because it's the part of your brain that governs how you see everything, which is actually the definition of a person's attitude. More on that if you want it. It acts as a filter. So watch the classic example of this reticular activating system doing its thing that most everybody can relate to is if you've ever made the choice or the decision to buy a particular type of car. Watch this. You said to yourself, all right, I'm going to get, I've had a really good quarter. I need a new car. I'm going to get me a BMW X6 in midnight blue. And you do your research and you go, yeah, that's the kind of car I'm going to get. And you know what? I'm going to be the only one in town that has one. I hear this all the time from people. It really is kind of funny, because what happens is as soon as you made that choice that you were going to get that particular type of car, guess where you started seeing that exact car everywhere, right? It's this weird feeling. Like it feels like you made this choice, and then that night while you were sleeping, everybody else went out and made the exact same choice. Obviously, that's not what happened. Here's what did happen in this. If you've ever had a similar situation, no, there was not a sale at the dealership at 3 a.m. and you were the only one that didn't know. What happened is really, really simple. You altered your brain with a choice. All you did was you just made a choice. I'm going to do X. What that choice did in your brain, however, is it took that reticular activating system, that filter, and it like opened it up just a little bit differently. You literally rewired your brain with a tiny little choice. And the result there was that you actually started seeing things that you could not see the day before, even though they were there. You literally took things that were invisible and made them visible out of thin air just because you made a choice. Why am I spending so much time on this? It's because this is not just about cars. What you see is what you look for. And that ultimately goes a long ways to determining the kind of person that you are and the impact that you have on people and the results that you get. Pay attention. Okay, so if you look, okay, how do I harness this thing? This is all great, Roger. You're talking about, brain science and reticular activating things. I would tell you that you really want to be careful about what you allow into your brain. A client of mine actually taught me a strategy that he called hunt the good. He learned hunt the good is what he called this particular strategy. He learned it in the military, and what he was taught as part of their mental resilience training is that at the end of the day, to just kind of do a very brief review, like right as you're about to fall asleep, and literally ask yourself the question, okay, what was the best, most positive thing that happened to me today? If you can, this is one of these things that doesn't take any time at all. And if you'll do that, it switches your brain onto, okay, it looks for what's good, therefore it's going to find more of what's good. And amazingly enough, if you kind of tie all these things together, you actually start bringing more of what's good into your life that way. And I'm rambling a little bit. So and I know we need to move on to some new stuff. So these three mechanisms, when you start to understand how your focus determines your reality, how what you see is what you get, that the pictures in your mind become the results that you get. And then you start to understand that those pictures are all being influenced and flavored by the choices that you're making on a daily basis. Hopefully you're starting to get a little bit better idea of how your mind creates your life and some strategies on how you can influence that in a positive direction. Okay, so we got to talk about the flip side of this now. We're doing fantastic on time, by the way. So we just spent the last, almost half hour talking about how some of the really important and impactful ways that your mind creates your life. And it is awesome. Like, this is the whole reason that I've been coaching people on how to do this for the last 28 years, is because to me, it's just this huge gift that we have this brain that makes results happen in our world. It really is. I think it's the single biggest gift that we're given as not just professionals, but as human beings. And then I also realize that it's a gift that comes with some problems associated with it. And we need to talk about those problems. These are what we call your brain's unhelpful default settings. Your brain, in how it creates your life, it can definitely work for you, or it can work against you. And a lot of the ways that it kind of automatically by default works against you are wrapped up in these three things. There's three main default settings that your brain has that you really just want to be aware are there. Because if these three default settings, these are wiring issues that if they're not being dealt with, by the way, these are wiring issues that we all come pre-programmed with. If you notice that these show up for you as I'm laying these out, please understand that does not make you a bad person. It just makes you a person. As human beings, we all kind of come pre-programmed with these wiring issues that, if you're not dealing with them kind of aggressively, it is virtually guaranteed that these default settings will stop you from accomplishing your goals. They'll slow down or stop entirely your progress. And they'll also add a ton of stress to your life that doesn't need to be there. They're a little bit difficult to get rid of sometimes. We're going to talk about how to overcome them in the wrap-up segment here. But I think it's important that we get these out on the table. So you just see if any of these apply. 3 default settings that you've got, all of them are really good. I'll tell you where they come from, is they're phenomenal survival mechanisms. Like if you lived in the wilderness as a hunter-gatherer, if you were a cave person living in the woods or another hostile environment, these default settings would be fantastic for keeping you alive. But in growing a business or accomplishing your goals or just being a happy person, they're counterproductive. So let's get them out on the table. Number 1, first unhelpful default setting of your brain is that your brain, whether you know it or not, tends to overemphasize negative and underemphasize positive. Say that again. Your brain, my brain, everybody's brain has a strong tendency to overemphasize the negative inputs, the threatening things, the things that get us worked up, and then underemphasize, almost kind of ignore or dismiss the more positive, helpful influences that we encounter. So it means that we gravitate towards stuff that gets us worked up or bums us out. It's weird, unless you understand that it's a great survival mechanism. If you lived in the wilderness, it's actually a fact that there's grizzly bears and other things around every corner that are actively trying to kill you and eat you. And so if you lived in the wilderness, yeah, the individual who's wired to be more sensitive to a threat like that has an advantage, right? The individual who's wired to be more sensitive, what's going to happen is they're going to notice that threat more quickly, and therefore they'll have a lower response time, and they'll have a head start on dealing with that threat. Like I said, if you live in the wilderness, fantastic. This is a great survival mechanism. The issue is that we don't live in the wilderness. I mean, for goodness sakes, we're getting together on a Zoom webinar. Miracle of modern technology. And so what this wiring does to us now is it has this real strong tendency. It just creates a number of different dynamics that will massively drain your energy. And probably the biggest one is that when you get people in groups of even just 2 or more people, this tendency really easily creates what I call the culture of negativity. And I imagine you would, if we were together, I'd imagine you'd probably agree with me on this. It's my observation that we really do more and more. We just live in a pretty pervasive culture of negativity that you need to protect yourself against. It comes from a lot of different places. It comes from everybody goes, yeah, the news is negative. It's true, but it comes from all kinds. It comes from like basically everywhere. I mean, I'll put it this way. Try this sometime. You just try you show up anywhere with a smile or a high degree of positive energy. Listen, as a sales professional, as a business building professional, I legitimately have found that maybe the number one tactic that you can employ is that if you just make it a habit of being the most genuinely positive person in the room, whatever room you're in, all by itself, that's going to do good things for your business. The issue, however, is that if you are habitually the most positive person in the room, I promise you will encounter resistance to that. Anytime you show up anywhere with a smile on your face or just a high degree of positive energy, you can bet somebody's going to try and steal it from you. Somebody's going to make fun of you. Somebody's going to, point out the cloud in your silver lining. And you got to be on guard against that. So, and again, we're going to talk about what to do about that in just a moment here. But let's get these other 2 default settings out on the table, and then I'm going to have Brendan put up the poll. Second unhelpful default setting of your brain is, you're going to love this one. It's that your brain has this really strong tendency your brain is very easily consumed with the urgent matter. You may want to write this down. Your brain is easily consumed with the urgent at the expense of the important. Say that again. Your brain is easily consumed with the urgent matter at the expense of the important matter. Basically just means that your brain is hardwired to take your focus, which we've already talked about is so important, hardwired to take your focus and divert your focus to whatever popped up over here in your peripheral vision. Squirrel, right? And again, you may or may not be chuckling at that. And if you are chuckling, you're like, yeah, it's because I do it all the time. Again, if you lived in the wilderness, that your brain's tendency to go squirrel is super helpful as a survival mechanism. I think that kind of makes sense, right? Because we've already established that if you live in the wilderness, you're in the situation sometimes where a grizzly bear wants to eat you. And if you're in the situation where a grizzly bear wants to eat you, you know when that's happening? That's happening right now. So you got to pay attention to it right now. What it does to us now, however, is sincerely, have you ever noticed just how quickly and easily your brain gets distracted and your focus gets off track? Yeah, it's crazy. And it's actually really expensive when that happens. When you're locked in on something and then some interruption happens that causes your brain to go from on track to off track, going from on track to off track literally takes 1,000th of a second. And then it takes your brain somewhere between 4 and 20 minutes to fully re-engage with what you focused on. And that creates this incredible energy drain. And I mean, you wonder where your time goes. A lot of it goes right there. And I'll tell you, I'm the first person to tell you, it ain't fair that it takes a millisecond to get off track and then several minutes to get back on track. It's extremely expensive and it's not fair, but it is reality. And it just means that you're going to need to be doing something about it. So again, we're going to talk about what to do about it in just a couple minutes. We got to get this last unhelpful default setting out of the way. Your third major unhelpful default setting of your brain is that your brain craves safety. Your brain craves safety over progress. You may want to jot that down. Your brain craves safety over progress, which here's what it means. Logically, I know that all of us want to make progress, right? If I were sitting across the desk from you and I said, hey, would you like tomorrow to be better than today? Would you like this year to be more profitable than last year? Duh, of course. Logically, everybody wants to make progress. Yeah, none of you, as we're coming up on the halfway point of the year, none of you are going to sit down and have a little meeting with yourself and go, gosh, you know what? I really hope that the second half of 2024 sucks just exactly as much as the first half did. Nobody wants that. Logically, we all want progress. Biologically, however, your brain craves safety. Again, it's a tremendous survival mechanism if you live in a hostile environment. But folks, this is the wiring. What this does to us now, this is the default setting that creates what's popularly known as your comfort zone, right? And here's the thing. It's not bad or wrong to have a comfort zone. Everybody has a comfort zone. The issue is that no growth happens inside your comfort zone. And your comfort zone exerts a really powerful pull. Your brain craves safety. And if you wrote that down, you could very easily substitute for the word safety in that little fill in the blank. You could very easily substitute the words familiarity or comfort. The reason why we continuously do things that are familiar and comfortable to us, even if we know they're not optimal or helpful, it's just because your brain perceives those things as safe. So these three default settings, your brain's tendency to overemphasize negative, to be easily consumed with the urgent matter and waste time, and then always be more concerned with safety than with progress. These three things, if you're not dealing with them, they're going to prevent you from getting where we want to go. So let's talk about what to do about these things. We've got 10 minutes left, and that's perfect. I did want to take this opportunity. I think that the folks at NAIFA, they may have already put the poll up, but I know that well, there it is. Goodness gracious, there it is. It's just a little survey that we would certainly appreciate it if you would fill out. Let us know how we're doing. And you know what's funny? I'm wondering if I maybe picked the wrong time to have the poll put up here. because we're not done. Most of you are probably going, Roger, will you please tell me what to do about this? Like, it would be pretty rude if like this was the end of the talk. It would officially be the worst motivational speech ever if this was the end of our conversation, right? Hey, everybody, thanks for joining NAIFA Live. Number one, your mind creates your entire life and all the results within it. Number two, your mind is permanently wired to screw you up. Hey, have a great second half of the year, everybody. That would not be great. I'm going to get this poll down because hosts and panelists can't vote, so I can't vote. So please feel free to answer the poll as you see fit. But I do want to talk about. I want to give you the good news. Here's the deal. In this whole journey on how you can train your brain for success, there's bad news and there's good news. I didn't get to say this before, so I do want to reiterate it now. The bad news is, yeah, you have those default settings. The good news is that you're not a victim of your default setting. You're not a slave to the programming that you started with. And I really hope you get this, because this really is good news. You're not a victim. You're not a robot, right? You don't just have to accept that, oh yeah, I got these default settings and I got screwed up programming. You're not a robot. You're not a machine. You're a human being. All of you, every one of you on this call, a human being. And as a human being, we've all been given the ability to make choices. We've all been given the ability to take action, even small ones. And if you got those two things combined with the ability to learn, it means that you actually have the basic fundamental tools to take whatever programming you're starting with and rewrite that program so that you get whatever results you want to get. Okay, there is hope. And so what I'm going to share with you in conclusion here is I'm going to give you kind of the basics of 4 strategies, 4 things that you can kind of start working on, that this is kind of what your brain needs from you if you want your brain to pull you forward instead of pushing you back. If you want your brain to work for you instead of against you, this is basically what your brain needs. And I'll just tell you this, fundamentally, I mentioned before that my business is fundamentally, it's mostly a coaching business. This actually kind of describes the coaching process that we walk through with our clients in a bunch of different forums. So if that is of interest to you, I already gave you my email address. I know that Brendan put it up on the screen for you. Just reach if you have an interest. If what I'm about to tell you here resonates with you, I mean, we only have like 6 minutes left, and we could spend a whole day on each one of these 4 things. So if you'd like to explore more deeply, reach out to me and we'll figure out the best way for you to do that. So 4 things that your brain's going to need if you want it to pull you forward. Number 1, your brain needs you to, first of all, heighten your awareness of what's most important to you. I'll say that again. Strategy number 1, and this is the most foundational thing, is that your brain needs you to heighten your awareness of really what's most important to you. And when I talk about what's most important to you, I obviously cannot dictate that for any of you, but I can tell you that it generally looks the same for most people. When I talk about what's most important to you, I'm talking about things like your own personal core values, your longer term, bigger picture goals for yourself, your vision for where you want your business and your life to end up 3 to 5 years from now. For many of you, it's the people that you serve that's most important to you. What I'm saying is that we all have things that are extremely meaningful and really important to us. And your brain needs you to think about those things more often than you currently do and more systematically than you currently do. One of the greatest lessons in success that I ever got, a mentor of mine taught me this when I was in my early 20s. He said that the number 1 reason why people fail in business or anything is that they sacrifice what they want most for what they want now. Think about that for just a second. People sacrifice what they want most for what they want now. It's a really easy trap to fall into. And the only real certain way that I've ever found to overcome that is to heighten your awareness of what's most important to you. Number two, I know we're rapidly running out of time here. Second thing your brain's going to need if you want it to pull you forward instead of pushing you backwards. Your brain needs you to create goals that give you energy. Create goals that give you energy. Now, I know as NAIFA members on this call, I know that this is a group of people who are by nature are extremely goal oriented. So don't fall into the trap of going, well, duh, everybody knows you have to have good goals. Yeah, it's true. Goals are really important. And then I also meet a lot of people in settings just like this one who are super goal oriented, but the way that they approach their goals actually drains their energy. If you've ever had goals that were too big and paralyzed you, or you felt guilty about, or if you've ever had goals that were too small for you and just kind of boring, or if you ever had goals that weren't written down, or you didn't really care about them, or if you ever had goals that somebody else gave you, you've experienced goals that actually drain your energy, and you need to flip that around. There's some great strategies on how to do that in the book and in our coaching, but that's the second thing that your brain needs. Three, your brain needs you to design a schedule that gives you space. This is what we call brain-friendly time management, and it is key for making your brain be better trained. Your brain needs you to design a schedule that gives you space. And when I say space, I mean space and time during your week to do two things. Number one is to actually focus on the big important things instead of giving all your time and energy to the little stuff and the minor details and the putting out fires. And it also needs you to provide yourself some space to think and like breathe and actually take care of yourself a little bit. Vitally important for your brain's overall health and optimization. You got to design a schedule that gives you some space. And then the fourth thing, we're coming in hot right on our deadline. Number four thing that your brain needs if you want it to pull you forward is your brain's going to need you to implement an ongoing system for feeding your mind. Your brain needs you to design or implement an ongoing system for feeding your mind. And the key word here is the word system. The ability to put in good stuff into your brain and keep out bad stuff is not just a one-time event. It's an ongoing process. It's just like feeding your body. Feeding your brain is the same way. Your brain needs you to be intentional about what you put into it and what you keep out of it through what you read, through what you watch, through what you listen to, through who you hang out with, through the advice that you get. And that needs to be an ongoing system. That's ultimately what we do with our coaching, is we help people develop and customize those kinds of systems for themselves. And that's really it. It's 11:59 Central Time, which means we're just about out of time. And you know what? I feel like we nailed it. Brendan, I see your smiling face. I'm taking that as my cue that we need to wrap this up. So I'll stop talking. Thanks for having me here today.
Roger, that was tremendous. And I'm going to ask you to not mute yourself. I'm going to ask you to stay unmuted just for a minute as we wrap up, because I want to interact with you a little bit. First of all, I am so thrilled that NAIFA Nation, that you are here from all over the country here as a community for NAIFA Live. We're broadcasting live right across the Potomac River to my right, right across from our nation's capital. So thrilled to be here. And Roger, when we were talking before the broadcast, I mentioned one of my own unhelpful default settings, and you said, well, Brendan, that's an unhelpful default setting. So that was tremendously interesting and helpful to me. But I know we have a lot of watch parties going on today. So I would like our watch parties to continue the discussion after we end the broadcast. And I have two questions that I would like our watch parties to discuss. The first one is, Roger, you mentioned your focus determines your reality, right? Very true. And so my question for the watch parties for your discussion, what will you focus on? What will you focus on that you want to determine your reality? That's the first question. And we have a bonus question, which is the second thing you said, that what you visualize, right, also determines your reality. So my question is, what will you visualize? Okay, so Roger, you mentioned the golf pro, right? Hitting the ball and visualizing the ball going in. What do you think is most appropriate in your businesses and your broader lives to visualize on in terms of success? So, Roger, we've got our marching orders for the NAIFA Live watch parties. I want to remind you that we have another NAIFA Live coming up in July, and this is going to be on July 18. Which is, of course, a Thursday at 12 Eastern. Ken Lebo is going to be discussing fintech, AI, and the future of insurance. That's going to be a tremendous NAIFA Live, just like the one today. You won't want to miss it. But at this point, we're going to end the broadcast. And I want to thank you, Roger, and thank all of our attendees, including our watch party attendees, for being with us today. This concludes the broadcast. Have a great rest of your day.